African dawn begins with an Emirates flight into Entebbe, close to Kampala, where we stay for 3 nights. And on one of the days that we're here, we head out to Jinja, where the source of the White Nile flows out of Lake Victoria. We then travel to Fort Portal in the very west of the country for 1 night before heading south to Queen Elizabeth National Park for 2 nights. After our stay here, we continue south following the Rwanda Mountains to beautiful Lake Bunyonyi for a 1-night stay. Skirting the lake, we head to Bwindi Impenetrable Forest for a stay of 2 nights. This is our base for the trek to see the gorillas. From here, we cross the border into Rwanda and on to Kigali, the capital, for 2 nights. It's a short flight from Kigali to Addis Ababa, capital of Ethiopia, and it brings us into the next stage of the adventure. The tour begins with an exciting flight over Lake Victoria to Entebbe, and when we arrive, we take the new expressway to the beautiful suburb of Munyonyi, situated on Lake Victoria itself. Uganda has many first-class hotels, but the Speak Resort, with its proximity to the lake, is very special. This hotel, where all rooms have lake views, has hosted Queen Elizabeth II, as well as Colonel Gaddafi and many other heads of states. The next morning, we head into Kampala. This city with 2 million people is the very essence of Africa and is home to Congolese, Sudanese, Rwandese, Tanzanians and many more. This is a central bus station and it gives some idea of how frenetic this city actually is. In the heart of Kampala is the central food market of Nakasero. It reflects Uganda's rich soil and agriculture. Everything here is organically grown. During our stay in Kampala, we take an exciting day trip to Jinja, where we discover the source of the White Nile. From here, it will take 3 months for the river to flow to Khartoum, where it will join the Blue Nile, and then the main Nile through to Alexandria in Egypt. This is the exact spot where the White Nile flows out of Lake Victoria via an underground spring. This is the place and the view where John Hanning Speke, on the 3rd of August 1858, declared that he had discovered the source of the Nile. The next morning, we drive on new and excellent roads to the west of Uganda. The countryside is typically Ugandan, with great swaths of agriculture in a verdant green landscape. We climb to 1,500 meters, and by lunchtime, we arrive at Fort Portal in the shadows of the Rwanda Mountains, or Mountains of the Moon. Behind here is Congo. Very close to Fort Portal is the Kibali rainforest. This national park is 800 square kilometers. It is the largest in East Africa and is home to some 1,500 chimpanzees. The park is flat and makes for an easy trek to see these amazing primates in their natural habitat. The next morning, we leave Fort Portal for a 3-hour drive to Queen Elizabeth National Park. On the way, we stop at the equator line before heading into the Rift Valley. The scenery now changes dramatically. It is drier and hotter, and we start to see impala on both sides of the road. Soon we turn off the tarmac for the last few kilometers to our home for the next 2 nights, Moa Safari Lodge. Sitting above the 32-kilometer Kasinga Channel, which links Lake George and Lake Edward, Moa's location is jaw-dropping. Queen Elizabeth National Park was opened up in 1952 and consists of 2,000 square kilometers of savanna. Always flanked by the Rwanda Mountains, the The park is very famous for these tree lions. It is one of the few places in the world where they can be found. One of the highlights of our stay here is a boat ride on the Kasinga Channel. The bird life here is amazing, and ornithologists come from all over the world to see the spectacle. And the channel also boasts the largest concentration of hippopotami in the world. Many villages are dotted along the channel, but somehow animals and humans have found a way to live in harmony. The next morning we leave Queen Elizabeth and climb out of the Rift Valley to the town of Kibali near Lake Bunyonyi. We are now 2,000 metres above sea level and close to the border with Rwanda. Our night is spent high above the lake with absolutely unparalleled views. The next morning, before we leave for Bwindi, we explore one of the most beautiful lakes in the world. Lake Bunyonyi has a depth of 900 metres, and this depth is responsible for early morning mists. It is this fog that turns it into a John Constable painting. The lake has 29 islands, and the village life here is serene and uncomplicated. It's an hour's drive that will take us into the Bwindi Impenetrable Forest. It's a forest that almost envelops our beautiful home for the next 2 nights. It is indeed an astonishing location. These lower slopes of the Virunga mountain range, extinct volcanoes, are home to 600 gorillas, half of the world's population. The bedrooms of the 4 gorilla lodge are beautifully warm and cosy. The next day we will see the gorillas. The drive to the gorilla headquarters is just a few minutes, and after a small briefing we head into the forest with our guides and trackers. We trek to see one of 12 gorilla families. Seeing these rare primates is strictly controlled, and only 8 people per group can go to see the family. Gorillas can move up to 50 kilometers per day, but the mornings are spent with the family, which is why only morning visits are allowed. There is also a time restriction of 1 hour. All our families have names. This is the Mubarak family, and the silverback is 248 kilos. To watch the gorillas in their natural habitat is an awe-inspiring experience. It's like looking in the mirror at ourselves. It is one of the greatest experiences in world travel. We leave Bwindi for the border. Customs and immigration are fast, and on excellent roads we arrive in Kigali by lunchtime. This is what Kigali looked like in July 1994, immediately after the genocide. This is what it looks like today, a gleaming phoenix that has well and truly risen from the ashes. Perhaps one of the highlights of African Dawn is to witness how Rwanda has transformed and rebuilt in less than 30 years from an almost complete ground zero. Our focus coming to Rwanda has always been the incredible leadership, vision and compassion of President Paul Kagame. But of course, we don't ignore the genocide. Our visit to the Genocide Memorial is a sobering experience without being harrowing. The presentation is a superb chronology of the events that took place between the 7th of April and the 15th of July 1994. During this 3-month period, nearly 1 million people died. Kigali Airport, and the next stage of African dawn adventure. The flight to Addis Ababa is 2.5 hours, and we spend 2 nights here, which includes a Timkat festival. The tour then moves on to Bahidar on the south side of Lake Tana for 2 nights. We cross the lake to the Camelot city of Gonda, where we'll stay for 2 nights. After, we cross the Great Simien Mountains to the holy city of Axum for a 2-night stay. A 20-minute flight brings us into Lalibela, home of the 12th century rock-hewn churches. African dawn then takes another twist as we fly to Asmara, capital of Eritrea. Our 4 nights in the North Korea of Africa includes 1 night at the exotic Red Sea port of Massawa. A Fly Dubai flight from Asmara to Dubai allows us to connect for the final leg of the journey back to Australia. This is Addis Ababa. It lies at an altitude of 2,400 meters. It is the 4th highest city in the world. It is home to 5 million people, bustling, where the skyline changes almost every month. During our 2 nights here, we visit the National Museum. It houses the most famous skeleton in the world, Lucy, 3.4 million years old. The timing of the Africa Dawn Tour is determined by an extraordinary event, Timkat Festival, 19th of January. It's celebrated all over Ethiopia and it's a national festival, the biggest of the year. It symbolises the baptism of Jesus Christ by John the Baptist in the River Jordan. Mass is celebrated early in the morning, and when the priests have blessed the water, they spray it onto a crowd of up to 1 million people. This is what makes Ethiopia so unique in Africa and the world, Orthodox Christianity that is 2,000 years old. After the Timkat festival, we board our flight for Bahidar. And one of the 2 days that we spend here, we go to see the source of the Blue Nile. This river supplies 85% of the waters to the Nile when it finally meets the White Nile in Khartoum. The next day, we leave Bahidar for Gonda by crossing Lake Tana, the principal reservoir of the Nile, from south to north. In a relaxing and fascinating day, we will see the Blue Nile flowing out of the lake. This river contributes 85% of the waters of the Nile. Lake Tana is primarily a silt lake, hence the yellowy hue, and nearly all of the silt will end up in the fertile Nile Valley. The lake has 37 islands, each with its own monastery, and many of these have superb examples of ancient Ethiopian icon art. Ethiopia is the only country in Africa never to have been colonized. It is hypnotically different in culture, language, and people. We leave our last island and head towards Uganda, inviting some friends to join us for a hearty lunch. We reach Uganda by mid-afternoon and we are welcomed with true hospitality.
Hello, I'm Helen. I am one of the sisters. Welcome to our guest house.
When we leave Uganda for Axum, we drive straight through the heart of the Simian Mountains. These beautiful outcrops are home to the gelada baboon, one of the rarest animals on our planet and found only in the Ethiopian highlands. Unlike its closest relative, the baboon, they do not live in trees. They're distinguished by their red chest and elongated jaw. After seeing the geladas, we continue through the Simian Mountains, crossing a pass at 3,250 meters before we descend into the city of Axum. One of the most spectacular drives in the world has taken us 6.5 hours to complete. The holiest city in Ethiopia is home to the Ark of the Covenant. This is the building where it's housed, and this is the guard who will protect it for the rest of his life. It is also home to these mysterious obelisks. They're called stelae. They're more than 3,000 years old, and we believe that they were burial sites. They have inscriptions, but we no longer have the ability to read them. Axum was also home to the Queen of Sheba. This was once her palace, and this was once her baths. After our 2-night stay in Axum, we board a Bombardier 400 for the short flight over the mountains into Lalibela. This is the most visited site in all of Ethiopia. King Lalibela constructed 12 rock-hewn churches in the 12th century. They are known as monolithic, the word meaning simply from one stone or mountain. No nails or joinery were used. At the time, they were created by master craftsmen who chiseled from the top down to create the outside and from the bottom up for the inside. King Lalibela's intention was to create a new Jerusalem, yet the churches have remarkably different architectural styles, from fortress-like structures to classic basilicas with carved arabesque windows. The churches are connected by underground passages, symbolizing heaven and hell. Lalibela is still an active place of worship, and the subterranean complex is one of the holiest Orthodox sites in the world today. The next morning, we leave Ethiopia for the flight via Addis Ababa to Eritrea's capital, Asmara. It is now that we enter another world. This is Italy in Africa.
Guarda che luna, guarda che mare, da questa notte senza te voglio restare.
Eritrea was an Italian colony from 1882 to 1941. And in those 60 years, they changed the architectural landscape of the country. Today, Asmara is described as La Piccola Roma, or Little Rome. Fantastically preserved Italian Art Deco is everywhere, from the very active cinemas to the pavement coffee bars.
Guarda che mare, ma guarda che luna. Guarda che mare,
Many older Eritreans speak Italian fluently, and many of the street scenes are reminiscent of Sicily half a century ago.
Vorrei morire mentre la luna di lassù mi sta a guardare, resta soltanto.
The Catholic Cathedral sits in the centre of town, and close by is the Orthodox Cathedral, which is also Italian designed.
Ora son solo a ricordare e vorrei poterti dire: guarda che luna, guarda che mare, guarda che luna, guarda che mare.
And of course, Italians would say that Asmara has the best pizzas, cappuccinos and ice creams outside of Italy. Apart from the Italian influence, two other things combine to make Eritrea one of the most unique countries in the world. This is the tank graveyard, now an astonishing monument to the 30-year war with Ethiopia, which officially ended only in 2018. Destroyed military hardware from Ethiopia, assembled from all over the country, serves as a bleak and fascinating reminder of one of Africa's longest wars. To Eritreans, this site serves as a proud symbol of national liberation and a reminder of the countless lives lost in the war. An amazing Italian-built road takes us to Massawa, and we descend 2,350 meters through 3 temperate zones to arrive at the Red Sea in just 3 hours. Massawa is the largest deep water port on the Red Sea. Its location is critical, and over centuries it has been a battlefield for the domination of the northern Red Sea. This is an ancient city that dates back thousands of years. It has been colonized by Egyptians, Ottomans, Italians, British, Portuguese and Ethiopians. The city has wonderful ensembles of Ottoman and coral architecture. It was bombed extensively in 1990 by the Ethiopians and has a faded glory like Havana, Stone Town in Zanzibar and Al Balad in Jeddah. Eritrea has been closed to the outside world for 30 years, and its uniqueness is an enthralling end to African dawn. This is an incredible 28-day adventure to 4 seldom visited countries on the continent.